I've been talking a lot about Christmas lately on this channel, and the reason why, there's a number of reasons why, but I want to tell you a quick story that's in the news right now as we're speaking that illustrates one of the big reasons why I'm talking about Christmas and the date of Christmas and why Christians should be celebrating Christmas. Now, that might be different for every person, that different amount, but here's the thing. If you enjoy celebration, if you enjoy holidays, this is a time of the year that you need to go all out and be way better than everyone else and everything you do with this. And let me tell you the reasons why as we get through here. And I also want to address some of the misconceptions about Christmas. And I've been talking about this on this channel, on my blog, on iApologia.com. If you want to go there and check those articles out, I have them all going all the way until Christmas Day on the topic of Christmas. I've been hitting this from so many different angles, pounding away at this, because I think this topic is so important, because this is the time of the year like no other where we have the greatest impact. If you got to this far, great. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to have you on board. If this has caught your attention, the story I want to tell you is about Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro. Recently on the news, I guess they had some sort of spat or something like that. I'm kind of staying out of that type of stuff. But I do want to point this out. If you're in the conservative world, which I tend to be that realm, I want to see them get along. I want to see them figure things out and maybe have the spats behind closed doors, chat about it, and then try to work out some differences and maybe agree to disagree and move on and focus on the main things. But it seems like maybe the main things have shifted into different categories, and then they're having these spats, which kind of divide their movement. Now, what does this story have to do with us? I think it has to do everything with Christmas. In today's day and age, I hear so many Christians tell me, like, hey, Daniel, there is this war between Christmas and Christianity. Because why? Because Christmas has pagan roots. It was started by pagans, and we should not be celebrating Christmas because it's a pagan roots holiday. Now, there are so many issues with this argument. Let me go through a few of those, but I want to point out a few things with this that I just came across recently by listening to a Jewish rabbi. And a number of 3 things stimulated my mind, and I want to share those with you, and a few address some of the misconceptions down below. Again, if you are finding this interesting, please keep listening here. All right. Hebrew rabbi, he was talking about, hey, Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a holiday where it's also called the Festival of Lights. It's where the Jewish people celebrate the time of the year when they had victory over another group of people. This is in the intertestamental period, and it's, you can read the history of it. It's when the candles kept burning for 8 days without oil, or a minimal amount of oil, and they figure it's some sort of miracle. But remember, 8 days of Hanukkah. Now, interestingly, about 8 days of Hanukkah, it says 8 days. 8 is a very Christian number. And the number of completion in the Bible. The 8th day, we celebrate Christ on not the 7th day, but the 8th day, the first day of the week, which is the day after, the 7th, the 8th day, the Lord's Day. Interesting. That's just interesting overlap. Also, it's called the Festival of Lights. Interesting. The light of the world came in when? Well, I don't know for sure. Maybe it was in the spring, maybe in the fall. People say all sorts of things, but there's overlap here. It's quite interesting. I'm not saying it was, because it may have been some other date, but it does seem to overlap quite a bit. It's Festival of Lights, the time of the year that we celebrate light, and we celebrate Christ as being the light of the world. Now, interestingly, there is this thing that he was talking about, is that the Jewish people put some sort of candles up, menorah or whatever, in the windows. And this overlaps with Christianity as well. So I'm looking like, okay, well, Christians often put up candles in their windows to celebrate Christmas, right? I mean, you've seen this before. You are looking at a house, and it's like, oh, a bunch of the candle lights up there. It's an old-fashioned looking feel, like almost a beautiful thing when you see all these lights in the windows. Well, that seems to overlap a lot with Hanukkah. Now, there might be no connection to those things, but it seems like there's a lot of overlap. I wonder why. And then you go back, you're like, wait, okay, intertestamental period. Hanukkah started in the intertestamental period. This is before the New Testament. So you're like, okay, wait. So Hanukkah was being celebrated way before the New Testament, number one. Number two, Christianity is the offshoot of Judaism, if you want to think of it that way. Jesus was a Jew, just like many of his first followers were Jews. So it's a very Jewish religion, and you could be argued it is the Jewish religion. It is the religion of God, the Jewish God, which is Yahweh. You know, we are the rightful heirs of the promises to Abraham. That's how you could argue, and I think that's totally fair. That's what the New Testament argues as well. So we have this overlap where Christians have pretty much are doing a very similar things that Jewish people are doing today, celebrating the Festival of Lights, the 8th day, 8 days of Hanukkah. We talked about that. We talked about lights in the window. This is very common, and Jesus coming to Earth during this time of the year is quite an overlap, if I can say the least. Now, it's interesting. You're like, well, wait, maybe it's not a complete overlap. Maybe maybe we do not celebrate Christmas the same time of the year. Well, it is. Hanukkah is during the winter season, and in fact, oftentimes it overlaps with Christmas itself. Now, maybe there's no connection, and that's fair enough. But it is interesting. There is somewhat of a connection. There's some sort of correlation. It might not be caused by it, but there's a lot of correlation here. So I would argue that it's probably, instead of pagan roots, that probably has more roots in Hanukkah than some of the pagan holidays, which I talk about a lot on this last few videos on this channel and on my blog on iApologia.com, which you can check out down below, where I hammer this topic in all different ways, which you can read all about it. But here's one thing that's interesting is like, well, Hanukkah happens to fall over top of Christmas many, many times. Not always, but many times. Sometimes it's after, sometimes it's before. But in many years, it happens right on the time of Christmas. 2022, 2024, 2027, Christmas and Hanukkah will overlap. 2030, Christmas and Hanukkah will overlap. There's so much overlap on these holidays. It's crazy if you start thinking about it. Okay, so now we have some overlap here. Same time of the year, the same feel. There's a Festival of Lights, 8th day. So we see some overlap here. Now, when did Christmas come about? Now, I've again hammered this away on this channel many times. You'll see this on my blog. Again, keep plugging the blog. But in 202 AD, a man named Hippolytus of Rome, he had a sermon about the book of Daniel, and he talked about the topic that he thinks that Jesus was born on December 25th, or in his calendar is a different date, but you can read more about that later. But it equals out to December 25th. So this is 202. Like, this is about 100 years, almost 100 years after the disciples had died. Within 100 years, Christians were already arguing that Jesus was born on December 25th. That's interesting, really early on. And in fact, Hippolytus, however old he was when he wrote this, I mean, he could have been born and interacted with people. He could have interacted with people who may have known the apostles themselves. Like, that's how early he was. Like, if he wrote this in 202, and if, let's say, he was, 30, 40 years old at this time, I'm just guessing, I don't know. Okay, so he was born maybe the late 100s. So some of the apostles' disciples, they could have overlapped potentially. I mean, it wasn't that many generations. So did he know something that we don't know? Well, it seems like he got it from some sort of Jewish, not so much a Jewish, it's more Jewish mysticism, like how that someone's conceived the same day that they die. And he argues that Jesus died on pretty much Passover on a certain date. No, I think it's like March 25th. You go forward 9 months, which we know the Bible says he died on Passover, by the way, too, which is an interesting overlap. But if he's conceived on the same day, 9 months forward is December 25th. So you get the point. This is his argument. Integral age theory, whatever. You can read more about that. But so I find this quite interesting that there's this massive overlap. Okay. Now we start talking about some other things, like let's say the Christmas tree. Well, isn't that pagan roots? Well, maybe it could be, but on the other hand, here's the deal. The Christmas tree came about in the Middle Ages because of a play, the Adam and Eve play. And so the Adam and Eve play was often given on the 24th, Christmas Eve. Well, why was it given on Christmas Eve? Well, the church in the medieval age were thought like this. It's like, okay, if Jesus was born on the 25th, let's go back the day before and use this time and make a point about that. Why did Jesus come? Well, if you're going to talk about why did Jesus come, you just first state the problem. The problem was that we're sinful. Well, why are we sinful? Because of what Adam and Eve did in the garden, right? They ate the fruit. So what they had was in the Adam and Eve play, they had a tree there with fruit on it. So it was the Adam and Eve tree, an Adam and Eve tree that had things on it. So they had, fruit on it or whatever. And they had somewhat some other paraphernalia on the tree. So you start thinking like, okay, there's this massive overlap now with the Christmas tree and this Adam and Eve play. That's probably the most logical and most historically accurate origin of the Christmas tree. So when you have a Christmas tree, you need to remember back that what it really means. It doesn't just mean about Jesus's coming to earth, but also how we fell as people. Lastly, I want to point out, and I've hammered this away in 20 different angles as well, is that to say that it came from pagan roots, which let's just say it did for the sake of argument. First, if it did come from pagan roots, some sort of pagan holiday, good for the Christians who did that. Good for the Christians who took a pagan holiday and turned it into Christian holiday. This is amazing. This is something that we should be doing constantly. We should be taking every pagan thing out there and taking it and regenerating it for Christ. We need to take it and remove the pagan aspects of it and make it 10 times more beautiful, 10 times more interesting, 10 times more, and then focus 100% on Christ. This is a good thing if they did this, but I don't think they did this. Like I said before, it goes way back to the early church, like the earliest of the church. Like this is like ante-Nicene. This is really early on when they're coming up with the date of Jesus's date of birth. But more than that, it's a logical fallacy called a genetic fallacy. If you argue that the Christmas season has a pagan roots and thus we shouldn't be celebrating it, it doesn't make sense because all the days of the week have pagan roots, like the names of the days of the week. We got the months. We could talk on and on about all these different things, and we could give all these different quote unquote pagan roots or secular ideas that Christians do today. Like how about a stadium? Not stadium. You have a pulpit and you have a people going up in front of people and standing up on an elevated platform. Well, guess what? Well, that wasn't really an early Christian idea necessarily. They taught, they didn't really preach. They preached, but they didn't get up on a heightened stage and preach from there. So that's more of a Roman invention that Christians kind of stole, and that's fine. It's no big deal. It's just that's how it is. So I can name off probably hundreds of things like this where we have taken other ideas from other cultures and incorporated into ours. It's just totally fine. That's just how humans are. It's nothing bad. So, but I think bigger picture than this is that it's a wrong idea. It's so wrong that it's almost like a point of lying when you're saying it's wrong. It is a line. Really, it's like it's wrong because it has pagan roots. That's a lie. It's not wrong because it has pagan roots. It's wrong if it is wrong. Like if it is pagan activity. Are you sacrificing to idols? No. Then maybe it's not. Are you doing anything immoral? No. So you're lying. You're misrepresenting the truth. It's not being truthful and accurate, and probably it's not even accurate anyhow because it probably has the best evidence we have. It goes back to really, really early Christian teaching on so many fronts. So, and possibly before that, it goes back to Hebrew tradition, Hebrew holiday, and there's a really good chance that Jesus really was born on the 25th. Now, there could have been a chance that he was born on some other day of the year too, and that's totally fair, and maybe he was. We just don't know. But the 25th is just as good a day as any other day, and there's just as good a case to be made for the 25th as other days of the year. Like there's other days of the year that, yeah, he really could have been born in the fall or the spring or sometime else. But the 25th of December is a good date to celebrate. And plus, society expects us to celebrate at that time. So let's do it and do it the best way possible and go out there and give it to them the best way we can. And we should be way better than the rest of society. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Tell me down below your thoughts, what you've learned about this and anything else that I missed. maybe some other thing that we do on Christmas that actually does have Christian or Jewish roots, tell me down below. I always like to learn more about this topic because it's one of those topics that really interests me, and I've been talking about for many, many years. With that, talk to you later. Have a great day.